Hello everybody and welcome to the British Pint. My name is Christoph and today we're tasting our Theakston Old Peculier clone, and I'm very excited to see whether this is as close as I would like to the beer that I tried on cask just a couple of weeks ago. I did try some of this beer last week because we were tasting some beers with friends, but I didn't pay too much attention to it. I just know that it did turn out quite well, but there is a lot of fruitiness from the yeast, and I think the reason is because not only did I pitch two yeast, one of them was the Fuller's yeast, and that one at 21 degrees, which is the temperature that I fermented at, didn't really turn out that smooth. So I think the Fuller's is really a yeast that you should keep at 20 degrees or lower. While the Y yeast 1469, the Timothy Taylor yeast, is one that is fine with 22 degrees even. Yeah, lovely foam. This one contains roasted barley, so that's the best condition really. The glass is fresh out of the dishwasher, but I noticed that my dishwasher doesn't have any problems with destroying foam too quickly. Okay. It actually does smell quite balanced now, so not as fruity as I remembered from last week. Maybe just that 1 week longer conditioning time was just what I needed. I had them in the keg for 4 weeks, I think, and that was in the cellar, but the cellar is not very cold at the moment, it's summer. So 4 weeks at 20 degrees, and then another week now, so in the bottle, so 5 weeks. The color is great. It's this very dark brown, almost black, 100 EBC, I would say. Something like that. Forgot what the beer was supposed to be like. Maybe I'll show that on the screen. And then the attenuation of this one, I think I got pretty close to the 5.2% that I wanted to have. I think 5.1 is the official number. Yeah, I think 5.1. We'll see. I'll show you all the data here on the right side of the screen. I think that's best before I start guessing wrong things. So the aroma is supposed to be fruitcake-like. And I remember that the smell, well, first of all, the carbonation was lower because it was from cask, but the smell really wasn't that intense, just a bit of maltiness, roastiness, and a very slight yeast fruitiness. This one definitely is more fruity, and it does smell a bit like licorice because the fruitiness and the roastiness combines to a sweet impression. Sweet and roastiness usually becomes licorice. Yeah, it does smell really great though. I like it. It's, yeah, not as neutral as other beers, of course, but it's by far not as intense as I thought it would have been last week. Yeah, it does have that dry roastiness at the end, which I remember very vividly from the cask beer. So that is, I think the malt bill is really accurate. That was 5% crystal and 4% roasted barley. The bitterness is quite strong. Some of the bitter hops were Target, but in general it has a higher bitterness. I don't really smell the dry hop of Fuggles. I'm just realizing that the recipe says dry hop of Fuggles. I didn't forget it this time. Very proud of that. I mean, it could be part of the fruitiness. I'm really not very experienced with Fuggles dry hop, to be honest. The recipe in the Brew Your Own British Real Ale was with Styrian Golding, I think, but on the website they said they only use Fuggle, Challenger and Target. Yeah, if we take a big sip, the malt becomes very intense. We have full mouth-feeling, well, a medium sweetness, I would say, and then a lot of roastiness, which in the end becomes like a dark caramel kind of thing, very late. And then the bitterness hits as the last impression, which encourages you to keep drinking, which is very nice. It's by far not a very bitter beer, though it is very pronounced, because I think it's the Target in the bitter hops that has harsher bitterness. And because this one is less sweet than, for example, the Fuller's ESB, which uses only Target, it's not as balanced, and you notice it more on this one, I would say. It definitely isn't as sweet as a Fuller's ESB. It is really nice, dark and roasty. As I said, it's very close to what I remember from the cask ale of the Timothy Taylor Landlord, of the Theakston Old Peculier, so that's really great. And then I think I'm really happy with that. Yeah, the foam is very slightly becoming less now, but it's very lacy. Carbonation is not over the top. I think I try to keep it on the low side, but obviously it's not cask level. Yeah, the color is really nice. Dark, red, chestnut, somewhere in between, depending on whether you look through it or whether the light is in front of it. So here you can see it's very dark brownish, and then light shining through becomes quite reddish. Okay, I'm very happy with how that turned out. Much happier than last year where I used molasses in this beer and it wasn't really pleasant. Probably I used too much, and I probably also used the molasses, which is too intense in flavor. But yeah, so I did learn in between that the White Labs 37 not West Yorkshire, what's the name? Yorkshire Square Ale. That one is apparently from Tadcaster, at least from one of the 3 breweries there, John Smith, Samuel Smith or Theakston. So it is probably going to be closer, but they're using a dual strain in Theakston, as they state on the website. So it's unlikely that you're going to get close to that. I think what is missing on the internet or for homebrewers is the fruitcake tasting yeast. I think the one that you get, that the White Labs 37, is the neutral, more flocculating one. The phenolic, slightly phenolic, a bit Belgian in that regard. And what's really missing is one that gives you that fruitcake thing. Maybe one of the Adnams strains would be nice for that. Potentially. There are 2 beers, one from White Labs, or 2 yeasts, one from White Labs, one from Wyeast, where they say they are slightly different, and there might be the 2 strains from Adnams, and Adnams is also very fruity, so you might want to check those out. That's the Wyeast 1335 and the White Labs Southwold Ale. I don't remember the number. But yeah, very nice beer. If you like Theakston, I definitely recommend you to brew this as well. And then I'd say see you next time when we try to get more of these great beer clones. Bye bye.